Boom. We are live, but not so live because still
It's
experiencing
not live.
audio problems. Always a challenge when it comes to figuring out this thing.
But we still show up for you all. We still show up for ourselves, and that's the important thing. And certainly making it happen. And Mark's working hard over there to figure out all the loops and ends. And Garrett and I are
We're just
kind of
goofing off.
shooting the shit here in the corner, and he's figuring it out though. So appreciate you, Mark. And yeah, I think it's just good that we show up on this podcast every week and keep the show behind the scenes what it's like to set up these things, and that it's not always perfect. It's not always bells and whistles.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, there's
a lot going on.
Some little
Shit
errors
going
of
down.
that shit happens, but yeah. So talk about that as well. It's important. Show the process.
Yeah. I think that the process itself is a little more embodied and sticky than most people would think, right? Like this is not. And I think obviously there are some people watching this and saying like, no shit, Sherlock. There's like a fucking 17 machines over here and a bunch of different mics and inputs and outputs and blah, 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 blah. And I can imagine that, like, you know, one of the things I did to humble myself but also feel better about where I'm at is I went to go look at some of the Joe Rogan's first setups. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I go and look at like all the different things that he had going into making what is the world's #1 podcast. And I'm comparing myself to like his 1,300th episode, you know what I mean? Compared to what he's capable of at a whole other level, having done this multiple times with a dedicated person to also running this entire system.
For sure.
And a whole lot of money that helps him make that happen as well. You know, yeah, maybe I could be a little softer on myself. What do you think?
Oh, for
A
sure.
little?
Yeah, I mean, all the first podcasts that I've seen of like London Real with Brian Ross, and then even Vishen from Mind Valley. You look at all these ones, and it's just like them hunkered over a computer, just like leaning in on a Skype recording with like Apple headphones plugged in. Yeah. But it's like more so about the consistency and figure out along the way. And yeah, I think this is like part of the progression of your own personal podcast, your own personal journey, because I've seen a lot of the older episodes like David Avocado Wolf and Lane Ingham and some of these different people where it was in that phase, and now it's just like a whole level up of technology in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, if you really think about like where I was in 2013 when I first started dabbling in the idea of doing podcasts and started recording and getting things going, and where I am at now, it's definitely been a leap for sure. And even then I was like recording with Skype, and then I was putting an overlay. I was like video editing, and I was actually adding an overlay to the entire thing where I changed the names and I would put their Twitter handle or whatever it was. You know, so it's all part of this process of figuring out how can you make the highest quality stuff and also not lose your mind. And that's the journey that I'm on. I'm still on. I've been on for many years now, but I feel better about all of it. I'm less like annoyed. I think you made this comment the last time when we did get live and it was working, even though it was a little low, and I'm experiencing some of the same problems here today. One of the things that you mentioned was like, oh, you're different. You're not like swearing like a sailor this time around. Like you're just like dealing with it essentially and finding a way through it. So
stoic style. A
little bit more gracious and stoic for sure.
A little more just like, okay, what are my other options? And let's just go with that and
kind of like
work
whatever.
With what we've got.
Just like, fuck it. Like we're doing it. It's just kind of like the nonchalant cool kid attitude. Yeah. We need to aim towards that more often. That's stoicism for you. Nonchalant cool kid.
There you go.
You know what? Okay. This is the vibe. This is the vibe we're going with, and that level of like. Okay, all right, here we go. Take a deep breath. Let's just figure it out. That's all you can do is figure it out. When it comes to life, you can just figure it out.
That, and you can add a little bit more alcohol.
Yeah, or dumb it down, or numb it down. Figure it out, or numb it down.
Drinks of us three.
Yeah, that's true. But this is part of the wisdom that I learned from both of you. Is like maybe I should just kick back and figure out what I'm going to do on a Wednesday night right before we were going live. And I actually am right after this going to a place called Burgundy Lion, a cool hipster spot in between where I live and where these cats live. And I'm going for work related things. And at the same time, I'm definitely going to have a quick beer with a good friend and see what's up, But it's like I'm opening up to this need to remove myself from the process to better serve the process as well. Even though that seems counterintuitive sometimes, or maybe seems very intuitive for most. For me, it feels counterintuitive, and that's what's like challenging.
Meditating, you quiet the mind so that you can deal with the busyness, right?
Whenever you feel like there's some frustration or some blocks with life, then how can you shake it up a little bit? Obviously, if like something's like causing some frustration, or there's some ways that aren't the most healthy, or feel like hitting walls. For myself personally, it's like, all right, how do I shake it up? How do I go back to the basics? How do I do some breath work, or just get it, just like shake something out, and then get like re-excited about it. And that's I've been having a bunch of re-excitement when it comes to the social media realm again, of like starting up a couple different pages and kind of reviving them. And building out some of my own social media presence on LinkedIn specifically, and just kind of start playing with the landscape again and again.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to like get into the nitty gritty of the numbers, because you get so in that the flows, or like the bare minimums. I don't know what's the word.
MVP.
Yeah, not MVP, but kind of like the routine.
Sustaining. You're just like sustaining.
This is what I do, and this is how I do it. Instead of like, what's new? What's curious?
For sure. You just kind of fall into like a job responsibility, or like a fulfillment, or like you just kind of do what you're really good at, and then it just becomes mundane. You're like just doing the do. You wake up and kind of do the do. And then once you want to shake it up again, you have to have that level of like excitement to kind of continue the progression and the evolving of your talent and your skill. So even when it comes to like, let's say a graphic designer, for example, like you could just get really good at building out Squarespace websites, what it is, and that would get boring after a while because you're just doing other people's stuff. But how do you prioritize your own level of geeking out in the design, which is what got you into the first place? 100%. Because these kids, a lot of these designers were just like 15-year-old kids that learned how to make Photoshop and was making cool things to put on their Tumblr. And they were just geeking out and like, oh, I can make money on this, and let me get really good at Squarespace. And then after a while, sometimes you find yourself 4 years in and perfectionist at it, but you've lost the actual enjoyment of what brought you into the first place. So that's like not only keeping it, and then we just let our stuff become lower priority to other things and clients because it's got that external pressure coming in on you. You're like, I'll just put my project to the side, and you lose all enthusiasm about it whenever it's best for you to have it as the same level of priority, your internal work, your intra projects, as your outer projects, or even higher than that, because that's going to keep the fuel going, and whatever you're learning for yourself is just going to replicate, and it's going to be able to have your offer be more valuable and be able to charge more, or to become more of a specialist whenever it's going to translate and transpire into your other clients' work as well. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing the do whenever you could be doing some more of the do to do more.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Well, I think that's the beautiful, so there's a lot of wisdom in that, and I can literally see how much time we spend hanging out with one another. But the interesting thing for me is like the balance of, so I'm always geeking out. That's like my thing, right? I'm always like making it more. It's like I had this system working perfect, but I'm like, wait a second, we can clean it up. Now I need to get to the next level, right? And then it's like, oh, now wait a second, we could stream to 17 places at the same time. Okay, let's get to the next level there. And it feels like I feel really good personally about my geeking out at this moment. I feel like really like I'm in a good spot where I'm like geeking out on a lot of stuff. But how do you like? There's two things that happen for me that I'm interested in how both of you deal with, which is how do you not get overwhelmed in the geek out? Like, example, everything, I love YouTube. That's the thing I would love to do more. But I also want videos to work on Facebook. I also want them to work now on like LinkedIn, Pinterest, blah, 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 right? There's all these places that you can now natively upload. And even today, while we were filming your course, one of the things that I was doing was geeking out on how to make IGTV thumbnails, right? And I just made a template for us. And that process feels like so overwhelming. Like, is it not me that, or does the mountain just feel like it's getting higher and higher and higher and higher? And no matter how much I get good at these things, and I'm like really good compared to most, like at least the caliber of which I want to create is really high quality compared to what the average person is creating. And at the same time, it has some level of overwhelm. So how do you deal with that? Like, how do you feel about those different things when the rabbit holes just get that deep?
Personally, it's being a project manager. It's just about the next, like, you don't want to look at the end goal all the time. And so it's just about lining it out in steps and prioritizing those and then focusing on that. And it's like, okay, I've got this down. This is great. And then I can take what I've learned there and apply it to the next one, or they're linked together somehow. And so it's just about focusing on, to use the cliche, it's about the journey, not the destination. And so but it's about focusing on that moment in your journey and not getting too far ahead of yourself, because then it is overwhelming. It's like, shit, I have to do this and I have to do that. And allowing myself time to figure that out, because I know when I'm learning something for the first time, it's really frustrating to me because it takes a long time and I don't want it to take a long time because I know it can be done faster. And that's been a really hard lesson for me, but to just be like, okay, Jara, block out. I think it's going to take an hour, block out 3 because you're still figuring this shit out.
Yeah.
And that has been hard to do, but has helped me release some of that feeling of overwhelm while I'm figuring it out. Cause I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to have this done. Those have been game changers for me personally.
Yeah. That's how I'm approaching it now in some direction or way, is to focus on, like, rather than just focusing on whether or not I achieved a task within a certain time frame, but to also just give myself more time.
Yeah.
So like predict the unpredictable, let's say, right? Like literally just bake in.
Plan in risk.
Yeah.
Oh, and
so like I started setting up this very podcast like 40 minutes ahead of time, because I knew, I'm like, oh, Cinemaker probably has an update, and sure enough it did. You know what I mean? And then so all of a sudden, like, I came into all these different things. I thought I knew the way to solve this one problem because I had solved it at the end of the last time, but now maybe based on the update, all of a sudden it's not solved anymore. And so here we are again, right? And it's like, okay, this is the journey, this is the practice, this is my version of meditation in a sense, right? Like this is how I at least see it for myself. But how about you, Garrett? How do you deal with the overwhelm? Because it is overwhelming to tell stories on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing that you specifically that I see getting caught up into is like even where we speak about earlier when it comes to Joe Rogan, where he's at now and then where he was at with it. And it's easy to definitely like compare ourselves in that way. Like obviously people are going to compare themselves and you've like completely shed your ego, but that's going to happen. But I think it's important to notice that and then try to benchmark less and be inspired more of like, okay, that's what we're reaching at. That's not where we have to be at this exact moment, but that's where we continue to make steps forward. And the way that I bypass overwhelm, I think I still experience overwhelm, but I find other ways to cope with it. And the ways that I distract myself from the overwhelm is to just do like more tangible, small little steps of like getting these little wins underneath my belt. So it's like momentum. Okay. Yeah. So like, in like the momentum typically happens whenever something does go live or when something's set up fully. So I don't like to be working on like 1,000 different things where like the first time we launch a video, everything has to be chopped up perfectly for YouTube, Instagram, yada, 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 yada. I know it's going to come with time and I'm willing to sacrifice not squeezing every single piece of value and every single piece of gold out of it just in that time. We can always go back onto it later, but more so of like, okay, how do we just like get it flowing just on like, okay, now we have how do the templates first ready and like how do we celebrate those wins? And like instead of being overwhelmed, it's like you start getting inspired and you get stoked as opposed to feeling overwhelmed because you have one out, you see the results, you get some people liking your LinkedIn session, like, oh, that's kind of fun, you know? I'm gonna keep on like trying to improve it. So it's more of like micro actions, distracting myself with micro actions, which my micro actions have to be live and implemented and just kind of like keep my head and working on something. Otherwise I'll feel overwhelmed if everything has to be done and launched at the same time. I'd rather just put one foot in front of the other. So that's the mastery though, that like, so I get that, right? Like I feel like I have mastery over those elements, meaning, hey, I need to film a class. I know how to turn on the camera, film the class and do all the things with all the right settings and all the different pieces. There's certain things that I feel like incredibly mastered in. And then my challenge is like, or my growth edge
is in the, it's no longer in the playing of the single instrument. It's in the getting all the instruments coordinated at the same time. So it's being like the maestro more than the bass player or whatever it is, right? And so how do I kind of balance between, okay, wait a second, now I need to be an audio engineer and enter into those mind states where I'm enjoying that process again. But as a maestro, it's super, that's where my growth edge still is. How do I pull it all together with all the different things? And then not necessarily to have to squeeze every drop out of the lemon, but more so that I really, it's like I don't know where the line is between me just not pushing hard enough and like just persevering essentially versus finding gratitude for the process, let's say.
Well, I mean, even between the last 2 weeks. So last week you went live and you did it on all the channels, and that gave you guys a huge rush. Like even watching it, it was hilarious sitting kind of back here and just watching you guys get excited. And then afterwards, like pacing around and like, oh my God, we like went live on all these platforms and that was awesome. So you have that thrill, you have that excitement, and that's not gone now. It didn't work today, but
yes.
And then so this week you're like, no, we need to get the audio right. And so now we're doing it a different way, but like you're still getting little wins. You're still doing it. You're being consistent, and you're learning something every time you do it. And so that's, I think.
And I solved one thing, which is now being able to go back into the matrix with the headsets.
Yeah.
See?
So I was able to solve one problem, but I didn't fix the other one yet.
Yeah, but yet.
Yeah,
and you're
that's a key
learning.
word.
You're slowly learning, like, okay, now I have to introduce the trumpets. Now I have to introduce the drums or the whatever. And so, like, you're getting them all together.
But it's like non-negotiable, smaller tasks. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up and do this thing and see what happens and kind of conquer it as it goes, as opposed to like a massive, overwhelming launch of like one piece of thing that has to go perfect.
Well, I think that's there's a lot of wisdom in what you shared there, which is the non-negotiable piece, right? Mm-hmm. That's like something those terms of words of that come from a good friend of all of ours, Phil Droulet, at least for me anyway, in my life. And he talks a lot about like, look, you could do a lot of things. You could try a lot of stuff. You can have all these clients and do all these things, but there has to be certain things that are non-negotiable. And if you can't find the discipline in those things, you're going to feel a certain amount of pressure or stress no matter what. And in my life, I've been generally very disciplined, but that discipline comes as a gift and it also comes as a curse, because then what happens is the second I am not disciplined, I'm like really like
it all goes out the window.
Yeah, it's just like yeah, and then it's like really like the thorn in my side is much bigger, or feels much bigger than maybe it is. But the ability to say that it's non-negotiable does keep me in the momentum that actually creates the outcome in the end, right? It's like, there are so many times where I've been told I should quit Superhero Academy. Like, it's like, why don't you do something simpler? You can make so much more money. Everyone tells me this all the time. Like, literally, I went golfing and Nick is like, why don't you just make that app, like the GroupFunnels app, and like make more of those? You're already doing it. You're already known for marketing. You could easily make way more money doing this thing. I'm like, yeah, but is that what I want? Like, yes, I want to make the app, and I will. That's the whole thing. But I won't do it without the brand.
Yeah.
And then how much of me is just being a fucking crazy person?
Well, I mean, we're all crazy in our own right.
But like, I know, but my level of crazy, like, I don't know if am I being like really ridiculous sometimes? I mean, it has to be true sometimes, I guess. Yes, definitely. But
everybody has their excitement with what drives them in life, and what is their excitement, their passion, and so you can't give those things up, because then, like Garrett said, it just becomes the do. No, I don't forget what he said, but
doing the do.
Yeah, doing the do. And I mean, I think we've all done the done. I don't even know
done the do.
Done the do. At some point in our lives, and the whole reason that the three of us are sitting here at this table now is because that wasn't.
We're striving for more.
Yeah, that wasn't satisfying. That didn't fill us with excitement, or like there was more. There's more out there, and so now we're all here because it's like, yep,
Doing
it might not
is
be
easy.
simple, but yeah,
Doing the do is easy. That's like we can always go back to doing the do.
Totally.
So it's
Exactly.
like so you kind of have that. Now we're playing in like the fun zone. So whenever I left whenever I did a season working as a ski instructor, and then I came up here and started going deeper into the online marketing, online business, and kind of went full time with that. But I was like, when I came up here, I was like, I'm gonna give this a go. This will be this will be plan A right now, and then plan B can always be doing yard work or kind of like seeing if Coca-Cola's still interested in working with me, or like going back to a ski resort, being a ski bum, or like, like I could do that. I survived. I made decent money. I'm a hard worker. Wherever I go or wherever I end up, I'm going to show up fully, and I'm going to be able to survive for myself. So I'm not worried about that. And also, I'll admit that I have like amazing supportive family as well. They're not going to like give me money or anything like that, but they're going to like show up. Like if I needed somewhere to go, they would let me stay at their place. They're still going to love me no matter what it is. And I'm lucky and I'm grateful for that as well. Basically what I'm trying to say is that now I'm just kind of playing in like this fun zone, and like even the stress that does come with this is like something that I'm choosing to do, because I could always go back to like something more simpler if I want to do that, but I don't want to do that. And now it's just kind of all play at this moment. So that's what I try to remind myself, that I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the journey I'm going on to spend my time.
Well, you're finding a love for the process again. Yeah. Yeah, that's I struggle with that piece, love for the process. And then love for myself in the process.
I think
That's the other thing for me, which is really, really difficult. Really, really, really difficult.
if everything worked the first time you tried it, don't you think that you would, like, life would just be boring? You'd be like, you're always constantly looking for the next step now anyway, but
Yeah.
that doesn't answer the love for you in the process.
No,
but
I
it's
think
just the process is part of what gives you the thrill afterwards.
that's true. I think that where this becomes maddening for me, or very difficult for me, is not that, like, look, if I thought that if I held a worldview that everything was okay, then this would be different. It's like, oh, the podcast is not perfect. Doesn't matter. Like, everything's fine. You know what I mean? It's that I actually have, it's the mix of that with an existential crisis. And I don't fucking ask me how the fuck this podcast in any way deals with this existential crisis, but in my mind it does, right? But because I believe that, this is a place where we could talk about interesting topics. And I'm going to say interesting topics, and I don't know what the fuck. Pick any conspiracy theory. What happened at 9/11? Was 5G bad for us? Is vaccines a thing? I have no fucking clue. Okay. But the point is that I know that what it did for me to read those things was massively life-changing, and has definitely changed the type of person that I am, right? I'm not like the type of guy who would like just go to Starbucks and not give any fucks and have no clue where anything comes from and just throw straws down the sewers just because, like, maybe, you know what I mean? Because I truly believe that the average person is that person. Because somebody's doing it. Somebody's throwing these straws down the sewer somehow. And I say that with love and compassion, but it's happening at an alarming rate.
Sure.
No, but it's happening at an alarming rate.
Well, I think it's like, and like, I don't know, like I feel that same way. And I was talking, kind of funny story, but I was hanging out with somebody, and I ended up, I won't mention any names, but I ended up at a McDonald's drive-thru at like 3 a.m. walking through. I was hanging out with a new friend that I had. And I was like, people do this my age? Like I thought we were over McDonald's. Like it's one of those things, but it's still a thriving industry. It's a massive business.
It is not slowing down.
It is not slowing down, but they're like, a majority of people are like still like just don't care about these different things of like straws. And I don't want to put anybody down of like their lifestyle choices, but also at the same time, like, haven't you all seen this the turtle with the straw? It's like, how about like
the whale with their mouth and
I
all
know,
the
like
plastic,
you see that stuff,
like,
and it's like, and like obviously there's times where I get a to-go box and it's styrofoam. I get something like this. It happens all the time, but like
totally.
McDonald's. It's like, it's like,
Like, are we still there?
Yeah.
Are we really still there?
Yeah, I get it, but it's I don't know. It's surprising to me to see that.
I think for a lot of people, the issue is like, like me making one decision isn't going to change anything, which we all know is not true because it starts with everybody just making that one decision. But
100%.
that's where a lot of people are like, meh, fuck it.
Yeah, well, it's so easy to blame the corporations. It's so easy to be like, oh, it's those people over there. It's like, well, yeah, yes, that's true. The corporations are doing certain things that are really messed up, and I don't need to list which ones. Everyone knows one. But the point is that, but we're the people buying from these people. Like, we are the people making their business run. We are everyday people, even if you're not buying from them. Like, even if it's like, I don't buy from Monsanto, but indirectly I might, number one, step one. Number two, somebody works at Monsanto. So even if they have a B2B business, there's somebody there doing that job. You know what I mean? Like, making that thing happen. And so that's where the crisis happens in me. The crisis happens in me because it feels like the sky is falling. And now all of a sudden it's like, if I don't get to a certain place, it is no longer safe. It's almost like, it's like being like a modern day prepper. You know what I mean? But like, my version of prepping is like setting up audio gear versus like, and like hiding amongst like the crowd versus like trying to go hide in some bunker underground. You know what I mean? I'm not the guy who's like, you know what? Fuck storming Area 51. Let me go find a piece of land in Nevada and be that guy. Right? Which, by the way, storming Area 51. Have you heard of this thing?
When is the date? It's coming up pretty soon.
everywhere.
I think it's in September.
In September.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
over 1 million people confirmed and 1 million people interested for sure. It's big, and they're making news announcements about the time, like, do not do it. This is our official statement from the Air Force.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It's very funny to say the least, but it's amazing what that documentary in that Joe Rogan episode.
I think this is a Joe Rogan episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's that one, and also the Netflix
The
documentary.
series, yeah.
Oh, well, the documentary of Bob Lazar that also goes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well,
Spark something.
It
Let me
did.
see them
It's
aliens.
everywhere.
it definitely sparks something. I find it fascinating because I really wonder, are people going to do this? Like, is this really going to happen? Like,
People
I am.
will show
I
up.
mean, if there's 1 million interested, there's at least 10% that are like, fuck it, let's just go and see what happens.
You think 10%? That's you
Okay,
think
maybe not. Even if it's
100,000?
even if it's 1%.
If 1,000
There's
people
more than
show
one
up,
person showing up.
there's
No, but
1,000
that's
people
what I
that
mean.
show up.
Like,
That's
even if it's only.
that's something. They're gonna. I mean, yeah. There should be 1,000 people that's gonna show up there. I would assume.
Face is just
I'm not
like,
gonna lie. There's a part of me that feels like I'm not storming it. There's
Nobody's
no
gonna
way.
make it through, of course. Obviously, there's.
I don't know.
What are they going to do? Shoot him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's gonna be rubber
I don't
bullets,
doubt.
or
Yeah.
there's gonna be riot squad there. But somebody will get hurt if you try to
Injured.
get close to government property like that.
There is no way it doesn't escalate.
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way. Either way, whatever is in Area 51, the idea. See, here's the thing I think is super important about Area 51. Beyond whatever is actually in there. So let's assume that there's aliens, or let's assume that there's government secrets of any kind, meaning it's a secret airplane, it's a secret technology, it's a secret blah, blah, blah. Or, and this is the third category, it's just a secret that keeps people afraid of what might be there, if that makes sense. So it's like, the Cold War, for example, is fought not just on like, oh, we have all these nukes. It's also fought on like, I wonder where the Americans are. Maybe they have this technology. So
Yeah.
then it pushes and fuels the machine further to continuously innovate, continuously kind of defend the motherland, if you will, wherever your motherland is, right? So it's the idea that even exists makes us feel safer. It's like, oh, well, yeah, but worst case scenario, at least they've got that secret thing that will protect us from those nukes that North Korea might send our way or whatever it is, right? Like, we have that feeling that comes with the fact that we don't know everything is discomforting. Like, it can kind of cause some level of discomfort, sure, but it's also comforting in a weird way too. And so I don't know if we didn't like, and not that Area 51 contains all the secrets. There's a ton of other versions of Area 51 we do not know about.
Bunkers.
100,000%. West Virginia's got for sure something up in those hills.
Oh, for sure.
Ghosts.
Yeah. I mean, the Greenbrier was the discovered was a government bunker, and
Yeah.
it was a whole resort, and like a very like high class resort built back in but basically a bunch of different engineers came there, and their wives thought that they were like television repair people and like all of these odd jobs. They were building a massive bunker underground that was gonna hide high-level government officials. It wasn't gonna be the president's bunker and like the vice president's bunker because they're still out there in different places, but it was gonna be a direct shoot from DC and from specifically DC, I would say.
Yeah.
These high-level officials would come to, and they would hide underneath this ground. But a journalist was. We could like look all this stuff up, and that'll be cool whenever we're able to have the screen on there. But
It's coming. It's coming.
But basically, a journalist got very interested and poked around so much that he uncovered that it was a bunker underneath the ground, and was able to uncover it and broke that secret. And now we do tours. But I mean,
now tourism.
Yeah, but I mean, that took like hundreds of people, hundreds of engineers and people to construct, and they showed like the aerial images
Footage.
during that time, and then we went through the process of like, all right, you go through this room to be washed down, and if there's any like radiation or anything on you, to completely like sanitize it, I guess, before going to this bunker with all these people, and what life would be like down there. I don't know if I'd want to hang out down there for too long. I think I would.
Get claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a life worth living. But yeah, I mean, those are all over the place, I'm sure. And whenever you look at like X-Men and some of these other shows where they're like deep in like Antarctica, where they have like the door that opens up. Yeah, there's some cool.
I mean, there are like some known things. Like
yeah, if you do say like a little bit.
What's the one in
the Seed Vault.
Scandinavia? Yeah.
The Seed
The
Vault.
Seed Vault is
Exactly.
one that I was going to say, which is really, 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 really cool. They're collecting all like
They have
seeds all
everything.
around the world to preserve there.
Well, they're also like very functional from the perspective of there were
Like
some
hydroponics and stuff.
Well, I mean, they have a ton of technology in there, but one of the things that was really interesting is that like in certain places they had full-on droughts, and what they did is they're like, because of the drought, particularly in certain areas, they don't have like a store of seeds. So countries will call up the Seed Vault and be like, send us back some of those seeds because we need it to reestablish agriculture of this thing, or else we've almost like completely lost the genetic. So it's almost like a good way of securing that in a drought-like scenario, which is very likely, beyond a doomsday scenario, a drought-like scenario is very highly likely, is this is now like a backup plan. It's like an insurance plan for that.
Yeah.
I always thought that's kind of how it started.
It's how it started, but it was to protect the genetics and to see the difference between the genetics in different scenarios, and to protect like a doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
Right? Like some kind of cataclysmic problem. Humanity survives somehow. Somehow they know where the Seed Vault thing is.
We want those bananas back.
Yeah,
All
we
banana
do.
stores have been, and we need great smoothies.
Because what are we
We have all
gonna
these
do without
beautiful
our
new
morning
plants, but
smoothie?
we want our banana trees back.
Yeah, we need him back. We need our
Give us the avocados while we're here.
exactly. Yeah. No.
Actually, I heard it had a flood 2-3 years ago.
In the vault?
The Seed Vault?
Something flooded. Yeah.
Oh wow. All of a sudden, it's like a cataclysm event where it's just like a
Now, like an
Jumanji
indoor
box
farm.
opened up. Yeah. But just we somehow created Pandora's box where like all these things are just
Crazy
mixed into
different
one
fruits and like yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, like the beetles of like that go after the vines in France now mix with the problems of malaria in Thailand, and all of a sudden all of these super chemicals come into one giant organism, and now we've got Stranger Things.
But at least it gave us grapples. Or grape apples.
I was like, is he going climbing? Is that a grapple?
Speaking of incredible grapes, you both have tried cotton candy grapes, right?
Oh yeah.
No.
They're super sweet.
This is like
We had them in Austin.
we did, yes,
Literally
it's true. I think
super
they're from
sweet?
Costco.
Super sweet.
Yeah. I've never had a cotton candy grape.
This is
They're weird. But
They're-
good.
I don't.
they really do
love
taste like cotton candy. I know, but this is
It's a little more
neither do
refreshing
I.
too, because you
It's-
get the juice in it.
You still get
as
that.
well. Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't
can
get like that
dry out
cotton
your
mouth.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Doing that big ass thing.
Oh man, the aliens in Area 51 are like, who? What the fuck? Where
How did
we
they get
come
from talking to us to cotton candy grapes?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about Doomsday. We talked about Area
No.
51, and then somehow cotton candy grapes was what we had to.
But
what we
to
had
think
get
that they would actually storm Area 51 is like, I could see how they'll show up and it'll be a thing, but I don't think that there is enough aggression around the topic for it to transpire to be like that big of a push? I mean, it seems like it's coming from a joke. Is there actual people that are like really serious about like, let me see them aliens? Or is it more so of like a comedy thing? Because whenever it comes to like police brutality and like these different movements start from that, is like, yeah, like I can see where like Black Lives Matter gets on the streets and like be able to go head to head on that, because it's like very
they
real.
Feel it every day.
Real,
the pain of that is a daily occurrence.
Exactly. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to just like show up and like make my mark and like put my foot down to this. But do people feel as passionate about that to risk their lives to let me see them aliens on that front? There might be people that are super upset and are using.
There are definitely at least 100,000 people that are really mad at the government.
Yeah.
Wait, for keeping it a secret, or because the aliens are like?
I don't think it's just an alien thing. I think it's like it goes down the same lane of drain the swamp, which is there's something that I don't know that the government and is keeping privy to me that is holding me back. And if we knew that there was alien technology, maybe we would all have free Wi-Fi and free power right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, but that's part of,
yeah.
exactly. It's like a Tesla thing, right? It's like, cause then we see these documentaries of like, they killed the electric car.
Yeah.
Like there was actual programs that basically slowed down the progress of certain technologies.
Yeah.
That would have made our lives potentially better, would have also solved existential problems if you believe in climate change and all those things. If you are subscribed to these things, it's like, wait a second, we could have potentially had the fix to this years ago, but now we're in this shitstorm, we're gonna have to pay taxes for it, cap and trade style.
Where like the Ford, I think some of the first Ford models were built to actually run off of hemp fuel, and like there was hemp plastic and stuff that was coming out in the 50s and stuff. Like this isn't new technology. It's been known that this is a multi-versatile plant that has 40,000 plus uses of it, back from like old papers and posters that you can see of the plant going back in that time.
Totally. And then it was replaced by, and it gets replaced by this like industry force that says, no, wait, we need to cut down trees and like we have to protect the foresting industry. So they get lobbyists and do this whole thing that outlaws hemp. So that same force that said, well, wait a second, they lied to us about marijuana, they lied to us about hemp, lied to us about mushrooms. Wink on that one. But now, like, what else are they lying about?
Yeah.
Right. What are they holding away from me that I get to now like experience? Maybe there's something that could be that much better, that much more powerful, that would empower me as an everyday person.
Anything that's gonna challenge the like health. Are we flooding now?
I'm just gonna shut the window.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so because the windows are open. Okay.
Anything that's going to challenge the big institutions. So the health department, there's so many natural solutions, and those are all getting stopped. The oil industry, like I don't know, there's so many others the logging industry,
there's 1,000
you
things.
name it.
Medicine.
I mean, just banks, the banking industry, the healthcare industry, just like because we know that something else is possible.
And they know if they keep, something else is possible, and it's readily available to everybody. You just need to know. But they're not going to cover it. They're not going to promote it. They're actually going to fight against it and demonize it because they're not making money off of that.
Exactly. So if that's the case.
And it's like, so that's what I love about Let Me See Them Aliens and like Area 51 and like this stuff is because the first step to any change is awareness. And that's why the internet is so important. And that's why like Netflix coming out with What the Health and these different documentaries that are talking about like holistic healing and just like different perspectives of it. Otherwise, we would never even have the opportunity to like the mass public, unless you're going deep into some like books in the library and like back in like the 40s and the 50s, you had to go like have a small little circle that was kind of its own like little community that was like
part
really
of like a mastermind.
Yeah, and like that, and those like little communities were kind of like the weird people. Oh, those are the witchy people like this. But now like you can go into it from a safe place of like behind your computer of like kind of like testing out the waters a little bit. You can see Netflix made a documentary about it. So it's like making those steps and awareness is the first key. So whether it's coming through comedy, which comedy is one of the best gateways, the best communication channels to push through that. Yeah, and if you like have like George Carlin get up there and start talking, or I can't think of a couple of those, but basically, yeah, that's a great channel on that one. And social media, campaigns, you know what I'm saying? This is the first step, and this is one of those abilities for somebody to get involved with it is from the Joe Rogan to the documentary.
There was one documentary that actually got removed from Netflix, though. Now I can't remember what it had to do with migraines or
I don't know.
migraines or
Because it
cancer.
was,
I don't know.
Controversial.
Because it was so
Fake news.
like
Whatever that. I
it
mean,
just
labeled
got-
as that. I'm not saying it is that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was only on
like,
there for 2
concern
days,
because-
and then they removed it.
Huh, that's interesting.
I have to
Mm.
ask. Oh, my cousin was telling me about this. I'll ask her which one it was.
So this is like that rabbit hole of fake news is the other reason why I'm fighting so hard to like build a system that does allow us to have a megaphone. You know, I've spent my whole career being like concerned that essentially the megaphone might cut off at any point. I think it's
from the original megaphone.
from the original megaphone. I mean, like literally WSB Media was about being a megaphone. It was about like, how could I amplify the voice and the awareness around topics that matter. And I didn't know what those topics were. It's not that I had a particular passion of a specific topic, although I did end up going down many rabbit holes there. But just that I knew that it was incredibly important that the culture war, that the war that is fought for our attention and for like the truth essentially, is one that is like, I don't think that it got better because of social media. I think it got more confusing. It got worse. Like if I'm looking at the state of affairs, social media actually created like a little bit of a crack in the opening, and like it's almost like we were able to peer into the system in a way that like we wouldn't normally have been able to do, like you said, in the 50s or 60s or whatever time before the internet. But now it's closing back up again, not because a specific person or force is doing it. Maybe there is, right? The FCC or whatever it is, all these different things that might like be shutting down the ISPs and blah, 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 like all the free internet stuff, right? All of which is a problem in many ways. But at the exact same time, it's just because of the confusion. It's actually like on a mass scale, we are literally in confusion as to what is true and what is not. Well,
Yeah.
but we get to like topics that were apparently true. So like I'll give you an example, Pizzagate. Right? Pizzagate was as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump go head to head and they have this big thing. There was this big conspiracy around. There was like this child molestation ring and this guy, Epstein, was bringing all these people to this island, and Bill Clinton is one of those people. And they're child molesters. They're blah, 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 blah. Right? And now I have no idea what's true or not. Point is, the story pops out. Now, is that Russian conspiracy? Is that Cambridge Analytica, creating confusion and saying we can't trust her, so now let's vote for Donald Trump? But turns out both Donald Trump and Bill Clinton are friends with this Epstein guy. So now all of a sudden there's that whole thing, which both sides of the swamp are involved, let's say. But months later, turns out, or a few years later, it's like, it turns out maybe that was like really true. Maybe he has like, there are some people who actually came forward, and there are a lot of things that's going on, and now we don't know at what depth that is happening.
Yeah, and it's just like so overwhelming of all of these different things, because you do question of like, okay, where is it coming from? Where like, what can we believe and what can't we believe? And that's why whenever I meet a lot of journalists that work in the alternative media space, is one of the first questions I ask is like, what is your process of research? Like, what is the scientific method that you use to like research on it? Because it's very easy to get lost in all the different articles, the endless threads you can go down to. So it's very impressive to do good work that you can stand behind when it comes to journalism in today's age.
I feel like that's incredibly challenging too, because like I had, one of my best friends, Germ, they're all our friends, but somebody who I went through the rabbit hole of watching Alex Jones with and all those things, like listening to all of those things, like on a daily basis, we used to listen to it. We used to work together and do whatever stuff. And we would turn it on while doing other things. Lance, here's the point. He's literally at the point where he's like, he might be a government chill. He might have been a disinformation thing to cause all this confusion and then create confusion around actual topics that might be problematic, but that they use this force to then associate with, right? And they create this confusion. And he went, and this is the last time I saw him, literally, this was the conversation we had. He's like, he might be that dead comedian that was also from Austin. And then they show pictures of Alex Jones and what's his name? Can't for the life of me get his name right now. But
Chris Farley? Who are you talking about?
No. Oh man, I have to Google this. All right.
But I think I have heard.
my
I think I've
phone
heard
here.
that
Oh, you got
conspiracy before, where he looks like a.
So another thing, so you have all the fake news and you have all the news. And I was reading an article now, what the source of that article is, I don't know. But that not only is the information gap kind of closing up again because we don't know what's real and what's not, but because with social media, you create your own bubble. You add your friends, you remove the ones that you don't agree with or that annoy you. And so it's just like encouraging your own opinion instead of inviting other opinions in and opening up that discussion and being open to different ones. People are actually getting less and less.
Bill Hicks. Yeah.
So they analyzed that Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, Bill Hicks dies. They're both from Austin. They're both apparently friends. They were friends. All of a sudden he dies and the other one just becomes like the next thing. And Bill Hicks used to play, part of one of his acts was that he would play like an Alex Jones character. Before Alex Jones was Alex Jones.
Wait, so he took over the guy's life, or they're the same person?
The conspiracy theory is that Alex Jones is Bill Hicks.
Oh, okay.
And that Bill Hicks just faked his, that
he died.
So he was like making these characters, and then all of a sudden, like somebody might have approached him and said, you know what? Let's make you this character. You be this like guy who creates this confusion and drums up all this stuff. Like, and if you look at the pictures, like if you actually look at them, you're like, man, they really look similar.
So you think that, but Alex Jones does obviously have records of him before that time with it. You're thinking that maybe they might have removed Alex Jones out of the equation and then let Bill Hicks take over. But
that's what I was asking.
No.
They pulled the Paul McCartney.
No. Well, so look, I have no idea. I'm not sure I believe any of this. All I can say is deep. I had never even heard of this. And then Germ comes in and he's like, he might be a fucking shill. And then I'm like, oh my, like.
I love Bill Hicks. He's so funny.
Totally.
He's woke as hell though too. He's so good.
But that's the whole point. He had this character that played this like this crazy conspiracy theorist as a character in his jokes and his thing. And then all of a sudden he dies. And now all of a sudden Alex Jones becomes this thing. And if you really think, like, if you laugh about the thing, Alex Jones is like, it's like calling it John Smith. It's like making a fake character. It's almost like Stephen Colbert, who became,
John Doe.
Well, no, but when he was doing the Colbert Report and he was this right-wing guy, what's to say that Bill Hicks didn't just make the character of Alex Jones and just become that person? You know what I mean?
Their only thing is that they look alike, and he used to play, because Garrett, somebody sent him a profile the other day like, hey, you look like this person. They're pretty much spitting images of each other. So that isn't really an argument.
No, obviously the argument is not just that they look alike, and it goes like deeper than that in certain scenarios. They're both from the same area. They both grew, like, there's this whole like thing where like it's almost like their backstories are the same. And so now you have this like weird, anyway, I have no clue. Again, I know nothing about the truth.
We're just creating confusion for ourselves to get confused.
The goal
from the government.
Exactly.
We don't need the government to do it. We're already going into like, I don't know what BuzzFeed type blog is that over there?
Monthly?
Texas Monthly. Whatever the Texas Monthly is. No, but I mean, point being, obviously, I know nothing at all about whether or not this is true or not. And I don't think it's true. I think that they're totally different people.
But it's so easy to get lost down that train. It's like we were watching I watch a lot of Bill Burr stuff and these like little mashups because there's a guy named Alan Palin who, if you're a fan of Bill Burr, you got to watch this guy's channel. He takes some of the clips from Bill Burr's weekly show and then finds a YouTube clip and actually mashes them together.
Yes.
So he was doing one the other day of this dude that got fired from his job and then went deep down to the spirituality hole and like was just like, I am God, I am all this thing. He just got so lost in the sauce of this like bubble that he was in. And then Deepak Chopra comes up there and he's like, me and Deepak Chopra on the same level. Deepak turns to the guy and was like, I think you have bipolar disorder with it. And it's like on national television, this dude just got so deep within it. It's a very
He ended up on national television. Like he
was
had a total
on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. He was being like
because his wife was like, oh, he's lost his mind and all, he can't like do whatever. And Dr. Phil was trying to like, I guess,
deal with this guy.
And Dr. Phil's like, well, Deepak just happens to be here, and so he invites him up. So Dr. Phil,
this is like the Maury show all of a sudden. I love how they just get surprised. Well, Deepak Chopra is here to determine whether or not you actually are spiritual guru.
Bill Burr is like, this guy just hanging out in Hollywood.
So fucking funny. That is so funny that basically Dr. Phil has descended into the Maury Povich of of daytime television nowadays. Like that's a classic Maury move, if you ask me. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny you bring one spiritual guru type to validate whether or not the other person is spiritually enlightened or just a fucking quack. That is so hilarious. Wow, I have to watch that clip.
It's a good one.
The
Just
only
came
thing
out
I really
yesterday.
remember from it is that he's like Deepak with his bright red shoes or bright red sneakers or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot which actor he was comparing him to, but yeah, to go back to that point of like, man, it's a deep hole out there if you get into the internet. So it's like, where do we take in this information? How much do we fight back with it? How much do we spread awareness with it? How much do we just like, these are my 5 essential principles, like Ray Dalio style of like having your own principles and sticking to them. It's like, we're still such an early phase of this technology of like, there's no SOP that we're teaching in school of like how to operate and how to go, because you're going through like the civics level and you're going through such a bureaucracy when it comes to dealing with things. It moves so slow. What they're teaching about social media in university is like 15 years behind what it is now, because the front lines of the thing is moving so fast, and there's nobody out there, and probably like five years from now, there's going to start being the celebrities now that all the influencers are going on digital detox right now, which is great. But that's like the trend right now. And it's like, so there's going to be more people that's their online course. That's their thing, is to like help people get out of this space. There's not one person that's leading that charge of like, all right, people, like we got to take a deep look at this because they have to use social media as well to spread that message.
Yeah.
But so it's like,
and they have to compete with like
become
the face app thing of like, oh, have you seen what I look like when I'm 70 years old?
Yeah, where did that thing come from? It's like,
I don't know. Everybody's
like
doing
what?
stuff.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is the thing now. And then I love how Gary Vee does the baby one, is like, when you zig, I zag. And it's like, it's Gary Vee as a baby.
But
He's so good.
Brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
this all kind of comes full circle, whereas earlier we were talking about non-negotiables when it comes to like showing up.
Yeah.
And this is also, it's what are your non-negotiables? What are your standards? What are your principles? And where are you not going to go? And what are your non-negotiables?
Well,
Yeah.
to me, one of the confusions is a healthy segue into the thing that we all do together, Superhero Academy, is that's the point, right? Like, because as much as there's confusion around every conspiracy theory out there, there is also a ton of confusion on how to fucking launch a goddamn funnel. Like, literally, no, it's so true though. How much motherfucking bullshit is out there when it comes to learning the way to actually navigate launching a course, creating something, putting it online, actually like, and cutting through the nonsense and the noise of all of these different pieces.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what, at least what I have a vision for Superhero Academy is, and I think all of us echo this, is the idea that Superhero Academy isn't just, okay, here's information. It's like, okay, come and actually feel what it's like.
Here are the
like, here's
practicals.
mentorship at another level, and the practicals that say, look, we tried this, we tried that. Here's what the pros and cons of this thing are. Here's the pros and cons of that thing. I don't really know, but this is the one we use, and if you're here, clearly it worked, right? Like, that's really that's the most practical way that we could say, like, if you're in this and watching this, clearly what we did worked, and here's what we did in full transparency. But there's so much out there where there isn't that transparency, where it's like, you're totally speaking to a real person and it's an AI robot on ManyChat or whatever it is, right?
Or the continual around the next email, the next video, the next you'll get the information.
Yeah, and so they're making us like used to this thing, but also numb to this thing. Like I am so numb to what goes on in my inbox at this point that I don't even like whatever. Like you just have to let go.
Yeah.
You just have to let go of like what, like forget it. The state of marketing online we're just in the ultimate era of snake oil salesmanship at the highest of levels, because now you could track people and follow people the second they make one little tiny, like they click on some link, and now all of a sudden I'm getting waves of emails and waves of things that are just targeting me everywhere I go.
Yesterday in a coffee shop, so we have this local that we go to and we work from, and there's a reporter. He's a photographer for a newspaper here. And then he noticed I was using Slack. He's like, "You guys use Slack for work? Have you read the terms and conditions? Because I don't want to download it on my computer and because and I don't go to. I have a whole list of websites I don't go to, and I don't use Messenger because of the data and everything and the stalking and what they're allowed to use and not." And he just went like deep.
Yeah.
And I was just
You're like, I just came here for the coffee.
Yeah, but it's got a good point. I mean, we aimlessly sign without
absolutely.
a doubt. It's like, sure, give me my app.
Give me my app.
Yeah.
Like, give me my update. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but so somebody asked me today about 5G. What do I think about 5G? And I was like, I don't even know where to begin to say what I think about this thing. I have no clue. This is not going to be the mountain I die on at this point, because there's no point in trying to scream at the top of my lungs at the mountaintops, trying to holler at some person down in West Virginia or wherever it is to let them know of the dangers of this technology. Because the truth is, I am so confused as what is true anymore. And any of this, where I can source any amount of news at all, because like, again, back to even Facebook, even if Facebook has the perfect algorithm that siphons bullshit, how much of people are just using Cambridge Analytica stuff and then bringing on the more bullshit? You know what I mean? Like, just because it's a Facebook ad and they paid Facebook, now it might not be bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much out there. There's so much that is deeply concerning that doesn't allow us to figure out what can we really truly do? And is it even stoppable? And that was my whole point on the 5G thing is, I don't know. And we're going to beg for it. This is maybe just the way that we're birthing the technology that evolves us into transhumanism and evolves us into maybe being an entire population of robots. Because that, or AI, quite literally. Because it's very, very possible. It's very, very possible. And this is maybe why people want to know what's going on in Area 51. They're like, is this our faith? Were the aliens actually beings, or were they just computers? You know what I mean? Like, that's a great question.
I feel like we're gonna just like have these podcasts, and at the end of each podcast, we're gonna be like, "Let's go to the farm." It's like every podcast we start, we're just gonna get so deep where it just goes to like,
I'm gonna run and plant some grid.
Yeah. Because I was already trying to think like, what are the we've posed a lot of questions here, but what are the practicals? We don't have.
I think the practicals are. I think like principles is a good thing to. I don't think there was like a very practical thing that we spoke about it, but at the end of the day, like you have to know your own lines and your own boundaries within it, and what are those non-negotiables for yourself, and what that looks like. To be open to like questioning them a little bit, but also to like know what your base minimum is, so you always have some sort of grounding and such. Like you always have some sort of roots in such an airy, crazy, treacherous time that we live in, where information moves fast that you have to freaking hold on to something. It's like
put your face in the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was saying that? Oh, the same photographer guy.
Got to give you some earthing on your face.
Yeah.
But that's principle number one. But I think there's got to be like some non-negotiables and some different aspects to look at, and that's why I'm kind of curious who those leaders are going to be in the space. And like you have your Joe Rogans, and you have your Aubrey Marcuses, you have your Tim Ferrisses, you have like some of your.
You have your superhero academies.
Your superhero academies. Yeah, you have like these different people who are constantly focused on self-development and like self-empowerment and like self-optimization. Because at the end of the day, it really does come down to how you show up personally. And that's like the best thing that you can do for anybody and everybody is to not step on other people to get better, but also just like, how am I like eating healthy? How am I like not being an asshole? Like how am I like taking a cold shower of that is like, though, like showing through example is more powerful than just being like a crazy person that's just like yelling things like, 5G, I gotta go over here and do something else.
Taking care of yourself and your fellow person.
Yeah. I think the answer is also community, you know, and for two reasons. Even if you wanted to approach it from like a data-driven perspective, the more that you're in community, the more that you can have data points that show different people's experiences and effects of all the different things. And you can study as a group a lot more than if I can study just on my own. That's literally what the foundation of the internet is built off of. I get to learn things because other people have put in the time and effort for me to be able to go through that and take that shortcut, let's say, to an information. Now, obviously those shortcuts create the problems themselves, but what at least I know that Superhero Academy is dedicated towards is to creating those shortcuts that are proven and true over and over and over and over again. There are certain things that are 100% true. Like, you know what the best email strategy is? Never send boring emails. Period. I don't care what tool you use. Don't send boring emails. Be like really informative, provide a ton of value. You'll always succeed. Same with like jab, 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 right hook. I don't care what industry you're in, provide value before you ever ask for anything. There are certain truths that are universally wise. And that's what we get to be dedicated to creating, not only for an individual, not only from an individual either, but from a collective pool of information that we're learning. You know, as we launch your course or a course on videography or a course on Facebook ads or whatever it is that we're putting time and energy into, we are consistently learning, and we are willing to be transparent enough about that. Right? Like, I'm on this podcast saying, I don't know everything at all, but here's what's worked for me. And it's that kind of balance between what we has had as our own experience and then what we can kind of share with others that allow us to find some semblance of truth. Not through reading a headline or watching a course, but actually through observing it, seeing it in action, and then saying, oh, wow, I can feel the truth amongst this group. I can feel the will that people have to actually support one another, the will people have to actually build something that of real value. So,
sure. And there's, so you might be deeper down the business hole than somebody else, but they might be deeper down the nutrition hole than you. And like we
collaborate.
Can collaborate and help each other out, because you might be a couple steps ahead of somebody else in one area, and then somebody might be a couple steps ahead of you in that area. Yeah, know those, have that self-awareness of where you can collaborate and co-create with other people. Important.
Exactly. With that said, we have now done an hour on this, and it is time for us to turn down the mics and send this off into the ether. And I know I'm going to go get some food and some potential beer or whatever it is at Burgundy Lion. Maybe you will be too. But if you it's like it's a radio show. Maybe you will be too. Maybe you will be there. Yeah. I mean, it is a radio show, but who knows? That is the goal. I'm treating it like a radio. I'm practicing, Garrett.
We need some guitar interludes.
I know. That's it. It's coming. I'm working on something. I've got a company lined up. I told them about the thing.
Playing the music comes in.
No.
Cutting off.
That's the whole. I literally asked. My original idea around the sponsorship was, give me a soundboard, and then I will take sounds that you guys sell. Right, like that. Basically, because they have this. It's Soundstripe. For full clarity on people who are listening. They have like a VFX sound package, and they have month-to-month subscription, and we can give people discount codes. If you want a discount code, Superhero or Be Bold. One gives you a free month, the other gives you 15% off. Okay. Point being, I was like, oh, why don't you sponsor Soundboard, and I will just literally figure out how to interlude that into the different pieces of the show, and people will know that it comes from Soundstripe because I'll just mention it at some point, and it'll be in the description or whatever. And that's like, to me, that's marketing done tastefully. It's a way of promoting that this show and this content makes people laugh, and people are listening, and anybody who's listening this far already knows that we're providing some level of value and some level of funny. And at the same time, this is what keeps the machine going.
Sorry, go ahead. We might be thinking about the same.
I was going to say, that reminds me, like, marketing done tastefully. You can do it because Tim Ferriss, he actually...
You guys are the same people.
He cut out the marketing. He did a test. He was going to cut it out for 6 months and then just do like a kind of like a Patreon thing, but on his own platform so people could support. And he stopped doing it after 1 month, not because he wasn't getting enough money in or enough supporters or whatever, because that was fine, but because people actually were requesting that the ads come back, because he's so good at vetting and he's so good at letting us know, and he only promotes quality stuff. And so they were like, dude, I'm
we need to know.
Like,
without you, I wouldn't have my Four Sigmatic and my Me Undies. Timmy, Tim.
Please tell me more about where I should get my luscious underwear.
But it's true. It's a great
value.
And he refunded everybody's money, and he was like, oh, we're going back to
the traffic.
Yeah, and he said, if you got a product that might be a good fit, let me know. This is the requirements.
And then it's worth it.
I do believe that advertising can be done tastefully. And I've seen it done tastefully many times over. And integrating it into actually making the experience better is where I'm at in my mind. Because I was like, I don't just want them to sponsor and then I talk about it. I was like, I want them to literally, I'd rather take the sponsorship money and actually make the show better for everyone who's listening. And it would, without a doubt, be fucking hilarious if I had a soundboard here and both of us knew what the buttons were or they were labeled. And at any moment, you could be like, burp, burp, burp.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
When
Like,
you're doing the do, you could do some sort of.
well, that's the whole point, because both of us can, any of us can have the opportunity, guest or
rapid
host.
fire, any mid conversation, just hit the rapid fire button. You're like,
Yeah, or like a soundtrack that says that's bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like, how can we just have those on cue that literally add to the experience of the show, and at the exact same time, again,
Show
keep
people,
the lights on quite literally.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Hit that subscribe button wherever you are.
we love you.
We do love
Have a
you
great
too.
day.
Great evening if you're listening to this in the evening. A great morning if you're on your way to work and listening to this in the
See
morning.
you later. What's the Jim Carrey at the end of if I don't see you tomorrow, hope to see you around.
Yeah, the gym. See, this is where the soundboard. Boop.
Yeah, where is the
He would say it.
yeah, where's the Jim Carrey line from what is that? Truman Show.
Truman Show,
Where
yeah.
he's leaving. Last line. Great line.
Yeah.
Good guy. Okay.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.